Hello, and gents. This is from Cappy's new video. How US air power destroyed Maduro's air defenses. Sonic weapons? Yeah, I was expecting a video from Cappy after hearing about sonic weapons were used, laser weapons were used. So yeah, air power shattered Venezuela's $4 billion Russian and Chinese built air defense network. Okay. S-300, BUK. Huh. So F-35, F-22s and EA-18G Growlers for anti-radiation. So I'm pretty sure when it comes to sonic weapons, I don't exactly know which weapon it is. I don't remember reacting to any videos from Sandbox or Cappy or something. Is this one of those weapons that they, US military doesn't put out information yet? It's classified. It could be that. Let's voice one.
Or destroyed Maduro's $4 billion Russian and Chinese provided defense network in just a matter of a few hours, leaving many scratching their heads asking how they did it. And is it true that the US forces deployed a top secret new advanced sonic weapon? The air campaign started in mid-November 2025 when a US Rivet electronic surveillance plane started to creep off the coast of Venezuela. It was flanked by several FA-18 Super Hornets just a few miles from Caracas. But why were they doing this? Wasn't it just wasting fuel? They were creating what's called a pre-strike electronic map. Their radar systems probed the exact location of Maduro's command and control.
Yeah, I just reacted to a video just now. Like, if you haven't seen it, check out the link in the description. It's there. It's the latest video before this. And it's basically talked about how, from Ford class carrier, how did they, how did they put so many planes on the sky and how they mapped and overwhelm the field.
Nodes. And what did that look like? Take a look at this map here. It shows leaked images of the location of Venezuela's air defense bubbles. This intelligence was leaked straight from the Venezuelan Integrated Aerospace Defense Command. PowerPoint slides are way more cool when they're top secret. We see here, it's a layered system with overlapping air defense nodes. This is supposed to create redundancy in the system and limit single points of failure. The leaked documents revealed that one thing Maduro's forces lacked was radar detection in lower altitude range, which is a gap that American forces would plan to exploit. From this sweep, US aircraft knew that they were flying directly into the Russian, Chinese, and Iranian-provided defense systems, and on paper, Venezuela was in command of significant surface-to-air defense capabilities. But the US military planners knew that they didn't have to physically destroy everything. They only needed to neutralize their adversary's ability to coordinate. In the face of this, on January 3rd at 2 a.m., the U.S. Air Force and Navy launched F-35, F-18 Growlers, and F-22 Raptors from bases in Puerto Rico, the Dominican Republic, and carrier decks in the Caribbean. The Air Tasking Order provided each of the 150 pilots with their routes, targets, and strike package details. The first thing the Growlers did was use its suite of sensors and jamming systems to detect these hostile radar emissions and suppress them with targeted electronic attacks. Then it launched its AGM-88 missile that hunts enemy air defense system emissions. Here we see video evidence of security forces firing missiles at the American aircraft, giving away their position for destruction. Then they launched their fire and forget AGM-150.
I like that dog photo. It's just perfect. Americans like, oh, thank you. Oh, thank you for that missile. Now I can just find you. That missile's not going to do anything to us, but now we can find you.
Which is a standoff munition that lets them shoot from the safe distance of over 100 kilometers away. The precision attacks destroyed 2 of the Russian-provided Buk command centers, and when you knock out one of those control nodes, it immediately reduces the effectiveness of any of the launchers attached to it. Pieces of the missiles were later recovered from the ground and posted online. These were physically targeted and destroyed because their mid-range capabilities posed the greatest threat to helicopters. After-action reports showed that many of these launchers were destroyed while still in storage. They never even made it out of their warehouse. From here, the F-35 sensors created what's called a God's Eye view of the battle map. This is a shared picture with the entire strike team, and it's important because at this point, they're up against Russia's S-300, the most expensive and sophisticated missile defense system they had. How effective is it?
I'm like, what? The most sophisticated? Oh, they have. All right, that makes sense. Yeah, what was that Eagle? Which movie was that which had that, right? God's Eye or whatever, which basically this high tech, which can look at anything, satellite type of shit. Military literally just say, yeah, we're gonna do that, right? With a lot of weapon mapping and a lot of plane mapping and everything. And there you go, we have visual of everything. That is OP as fuck.
According to Rand analysis on the Russian S-400, their performance in Ukraine...
And by the way, all the people who said F-35 sucks, this mission would not have done the way it did without F-35. All that God's eye, yeah, F-35 is being used as a homing beacon and giving views to like people on ground, Delta Force, which can just see anything. It's literally like, like Google Maps or something, like live feed Google Maps, checking shit. Yeah.
Reveals that Western missiles are intercepted about 90% of engagements due to recent upgrades. Ukraine's own S-300 systems have proved effective at intercepting enemy aircraft. So why did they fail so catastrophically here? For a few reasons. In Venezuela, the Russian...
Yeah, I'm pretty sure there was a news recently where Russian S-300, or was it S-400? I think it was S-300, shot down F-16 in Ukraine, I think, right? So yeah, they work. The point is, you can have an equipment, but everything around it sucks. You don't know how to utilize it right. No equipment is right.
Provided S-300 launchers were never even activated or linked to the Chinese or Russian radar network, because the American Growler aircraft are outfitted with the AN/ALQ-99 attack pods under their wing. This blasts high-power noise at enemy radars. It's like a brute force static on a radio that drowns out everything else and overpowers radar with static. It's like yelling into a megaphone so no one else can hear what anyone's saying. This jamming bricked the S-300, and then its operators refused to even turn them on for fear of making themselves a target for deletion. Counterintuitively, US forces were then ordered to not physically destroy those S-300 systems, likely for the strategic logic of leaving room for future escalation. If you blow something up, you can't threaten to blow it up again later as a threat. On top of that, the unique geography of the region further undermines these specific systems. Russian air defense systems are notoriously optimized for flat, wide-open terrain that's found specifically in Europe.
I think another element was that they didn't want to destroy too many Venezuelan things, because they wanted to capture Maduro and put another leader there. Now the next leader would probably be pissed off, and so would be the people if their every military equipment is just blown up. So I think that was thinking that as well.
But Venezuela has a mountainous coast with peaks and valleys that are a nightmare for these systems. So by plotting the right vectors, low-flying American aircraft were able to exploit radar blind spots. Russian and Cuban agents were deployed and helped to maintain these air defense systems. Russia's own state-run media TASS reported that Ivan Pavlov, a Russian working in Caracas, said that the warning systems did not work. Ivan said, quote, "The sirens weren't howling, the air defense systems seemed to be working in places, but that's not for sure. There's still silence on the television," end quote. Part of the reason that these systems never engaged American forces is because of the political consequence of firing in a top-down, central authority dictatorship. When power is consolidated in the hands of just a few in a military, your average soldiers tend to wait around longer, waiting to get orders on what to do next instead of taking the initiative for themselves for fear of future retaliation. And there were 200s of the Soviet-style 40mm anti-aircraft flak cannons, 44 of the Pechura 2M systems, and 5,000 Igla man-portable shoulder-fired missiles. So why did they all fail?
Yeah, that is also a good point Cappy raised. If you're living in that kind of hard dictatorship type element, yeah, people don't take initiative, literally logistically on the ground, person by person. So that is another reason why response weren't much of there. While in USA, like any other democratic country, everybody is given their job and they are part of this section. Right? They don't have to fear a dictator will basically get pissed off. Right? They can do their job. They have their role and they can do their role effectively.
The absence of seeing any of that anti-aircraft flak is very telling, I think, because even when Iran's nuclear facility was hit, we saw them fire flak into the air to prove resistance even though they couldn't reach any of the aircraft. So this suggests that there wasn't a will to fight, and the CIA has for decades created reports specifically assessing the Venezuelans' military's will to fight. This is something that is intangible. You can't quantify it, can't count how many motivated troops there are, but many of the forces appear not to have been willing to fight for Maduro. This has some speculating that parts of the Venezuelan military received orders to...
I mean, look, man, if your country is basically run the way it's running, drug cartels and everything, I mean, you and your family, it's not really safe in your own hometown. And then you're asked to defend that hometown with your life. Why would you do that? So that is that element, right? I mean, we know like how vicious things can get when drugs are involved and everything, right? So like, yeah, we can understand how like every soldier's like not gonna be that motivated, because fighting against what? Like the soldier's family, their children are already at risk because of all this. So which willingness is gonna, obviously they're not gonna fight back.
Stand down ahead of time, while other parts did not. Part of the reason resistance gives up in the first place is because of overwhelming firepower, and this came from appearing like you're everywhere at once. And to that point, US forces launched their first ever in history wide-scale combat use of kamikaze one-way drones. The war zone reported an analysis of multiple combat footage clips from the ground in Venezuela, where you could hear this distinct whining, whizzing sound that these guided munitions make. Sounds different from incoming mortars or missiles. It sounds more like a lawnmower of death overhead. These kamikaze drones themselves are based on Iranian technology that itself is based...
I was about to say the US is literally behind on this because they never thought they would need that. Why do they need that again? Like, you have too much technology. You don't need these kind of drones. This feels like a tech that is compensating against something. You don't need something to compensate. I guess it's just logistical, like you're trying to shave off as much as money you can, right? Why use something high-tech when you can just use this, that type of way?
On US drone technology. They only cost about $40,000 a pop, much cheaper than the $1 million missiles. The reason these drone munitions were launched is similar to holding a fake head up on a pole to lure a sniper. These drones made it so that they could identify the new locations of the road mobile launchers. These drones activate enemy air defense systems and get them to reveal their positions by either firing or turning on their radar emissions. These emissions are then locked on by American aircraft. This footage uploaded of the destroyed Chinese radar here acts as a kind of battle damage self-report for us to see. This is the first ever...
Radar was just fine, everything else was destroyed around it, okay?
Multi-domain air campaign that was successful, with these kind of layered effects from drones to cyber attacks that shut off power. No one on the internet outside Venezuela even knew this operation was happening. In a modern world where information of events and protests and war travels instantaneously now on X, this is kind of a shocking power for us to think about. Combat footage from the ground now reveals that Maduro's security forces did try resisting by firing Igla shoulder-launched missiles at US aircraft, but they were unsuccessful with multiple attempts. But something not often pointed out is that almost none of Venezuelan military has any night vision goggles. When the lights were turned out in the city, they couldn't see any targets.
Oh, what the fuck? You don't have night vision? How does that work? Doesn't... So anyone can literally attack you at night and you'll be just looking around, what was that? Where was that coming from? That's what's gonna happen.
Targets to fire at.
This is from Warhammer, isn't it? Much powerful force. USA is there and everybody just like walking around, the serious music plays in the background, everything's pitched out, and suddenly something jumps at you. American forces.
These weapons do not come standard with night vision. It's rarely seen fitted with NVGs or thermals. But even if only a few hundred of these systems were deployed effectively, they would have been a threat to helicopters, which shows how surprised Maduro's forces were. Countermeasures also help the AN/ALQ-184 pod attached to some of the aircraft act as a kind of protective bubble, and they break missile locks. At this point in the air campaign, B-1 bombers then launched their 24 onboard standoff JASSM cruise missiles from beyond engagement ranges at over 350 kilometers away. These precision strikes hit air bases and command centers. American fighters used their new next-generation...
Yeah, bones were used. I know it was from the distance and not overhead. But imagine if they actually done that. This super fast, bomber, just blowing shit up. Damn, all right. They didn't need to do that.
Generation jammer called the AN-ALQ-249, which jams multiple targets at the same time, and it can actually change frequencies instantly, but most importantly, it whispers sweet nothings into the enemy radar's ears. So its deception is fooling S-300 systems and other radars into seeing ghost enemies that aren't really there. So when Maduro's troops were looking at the radars, they got fake aircraft locations and false speeds. What happened to Venezuela's Russian-provided interception aircraft, though? American F-22 air superiority fighters had the specific job of lurking around and waiting in the air for any enemy aircraft to engage. But we know from Venezuelan armed forces officers that had defected ahead of time, they had revealed that maintenance on air defense and aircraft was extremely poor, and the readiness figures were way lower.
Okay, same shit that was in Pakistan and everywhere else, I guess. Even if you have a decent equipment, your equipment is only good as you maintain it, right? Pakistan had a very Chinese weapon, Chinese equipment. None of that shit worked. Probably because they're broke and they didn't repair it, maintain it. So it doesn't matter which equipment you have it. If you just put it there, okay, and there you go, we have this equipment. Did you check it last if it's working or not?
Than what was on paper. Intelligence from US war planners showed a 40% readiness of these systems. Venezuela's air bases were neutralized by drone and missile strikes, so the Russian-provided Su-30 fighters never even got scrambled or put into the air. They were kept grounded. American forces spared the exposed fighter jets and purposefully did not target them to leave room for future strikes if Venezuela's new president didn't comply. Leaving some assets remaining and alive allows for future escalation. But what about the sonic weapon?
There's a report, and it was shared by White House Press Secretary Karen Leonard, that says U.S. forces used a sonic weapon.
High-frequency laser system, mere wave energy, translate. Oh, damn, all right. From what, though? From choppers? I mean, they didn't use tanks, so I don't know. All right, laser and sonic weapons. Damn, we are in a lot of new shit. This is like World War I, when a lot of new shit has been used, right? Yeah.
In the Maduro raid. Well, there's a eyewitness who said what happened.
Because meanwhile, all of these strikes cleared an air pathway for U.S. Army helicopters to fly low in to capture Maduro. New reports of an interview with a security guard from the compound that was hit claimed that the helicopters used a new advanced sonic weapon that made all of the guards there collapse in pain. These sonic weapons likely do actually exist, and they have been used and deployed against crowds in the past in places like Siberia. The Pentagon even recently purchased one for millions of dollars in a covert operation, according to this report.
Oh. Yeah, I mean, if you can do this, of course they're going to do this. Sonic weapon, it just makes sense, because how do you disable humans without actually targeting them? Long range AoE damage, sonic weapons, right? I mean, God knows how many different type of weapon US has, basically like this, from sonic weapons to certain specified laser weapons, right? I won't be surprised if they have some kind of specific microwave type weapons that just, I don't know, specifically boil some person at place, shit like that, or they're working at it. Yeah, it's just next level. Even all the way back then in Nazi Germany, Nazis were thinking about doing some outside of box thinking when making weapons. And that was 80 so years ago, right? 70, 80 years ago. Of course, now with the insane advancement technology, the most powerful country on the planet, of course USA has all this.
But it's unclear to me if the interview there is authentic, and it could have just been effective use of flashbangs by Delta Force, which caused similar symptoms to the ones that were mentioned by this alleged Venezuelan guard. According to
it was a lot of sonic weapons. Oh my God, it was like aliens. We were all collapsed, we were bleeding, and Delta Force looking around. It was just a flashbang. God damn, man. You never been to any combat? What?
The alleged testimony of the guard: once the sound weapon or less than lethal device was employed against them, Delta Force operators wiped out 32 Cuban intelligence officers and at least 24 Venezuelan guards, all of which was corroborated by the Cuban government themselves. Why would they release information about these casualties right away? It could be a way to signal to Russia, Iran, and China that they tried their best to resist, but failed. According to the New York Times, while flying to the objective, the flight leader who planned the mission and was piloting the American Chinook was hit 3 times in the leg with bullets, revealing just how close the mission came to a disaster of a downed helicopter over Caracas, because apparently the Chinook was barely able to make it back to base. And if a helicopter had crashed with Delta Force soldiers being captured, the mission would have gone very different.
Alright, helicopters are crucial because how would you capture somebody and bring them without helicopter? That's impossible. You can't use jets. What equipment do US has besides Chinook? Osprey is there, but isn't Chinook more armored and better than Osprey? Osprey is just faster. That's what his job, right? I mean, so helicopters is necessary for doing shit like this. There are no stealth helicopters, right? So like he said, like those, like launchers didn't have night vision. But if they did, they could have hit Chinook. So it could have turned into disaster. The US must have something in the way, like some type of helicopter type thing that is stealth or something. I mean, they could have just used like F-35Bs and just land straight down and capture and like fly away. Fuck it, why not? That's stupid, but yeah, there you go.
Differently. So what does this tell us about how US weapons stack up to Russian ones? Geopolitical analyst Shaneka Perez said, quote, "The speed with which these systems were neutralized signals a catastrophic failure of Russian export air defense technology against 5th-generation Western air power. Every S-300 and S-400 customer, including China, India, and Egypt, now confronts empirical evidence that Russian systems cannot defeat American 5th-generation capabilities."
I mean, everybody knows that. There is no confusion there, right? US technology can neutralize radars pretty easily, right? But then again, that kind of applies to the most systems, right? If you use specific weapons, targeted weapons, anti-radiation weapons, any technology can be destroyed, right? It's all about planning, logistics, and how you do it, right? In the end of the day, that's the case. So yeah, Chinese radar didn't even work against India, for fuck's sake, in Pakistan. So I don't know about that. But yeah, S-400 worked decently against Pakistan, but India also had their own, indigenous system made with like European and like Israel, which is basically American tech. So it was a mixed bag when it comes to Indian defenses. But yeah, I think people know that American things is just overpowered.
Capabilities in operational conditions. He describes it as a strategic crisis for Moscow. Pete Hegseth, the defense/war secretary, made fun of Moscow's air defense, rubbing further salt in the wound.
Seems those Russian air defenses didn't quite work so well, did they?
Military superiority today is about more than destroying
Again, also given some credit that S-300s don't have advanced radar like S-500 and even a lot of S-400 has. But how advanced are they? Again, like any decent anti-radiation missile or specific targeting, like how their ghost plane targeting, that confuses radar, that could be done to any radar out there, right? So it just depends how you use what equipment. You can just overwhelm system if you plan it right.
Systems. It's about now multiple effects being layered together within a specific window of time. That is the new combined arms warfare doctrine. And if you like this video, you want to...
There you go. Yeah, sonic weapons. That is insanity. Or it could be just flashbang. I hope it was just a flashbang and no sonic weapon, because that would be so stupid. Imagine people from Delta Force. We use sonic weapon? No, we didn't. What the fuck is he talking about? Alright, well, if you like my next one, don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see you next time.